Hello and welcome to Now You Hear Me, the podcast that gives a voice to musicians across cultures. I'm your host, Martha Betubiza. It's been a minute. It's been maybe a month since I've put out an episode, but I'm so happy to be back, and especially happy to be back with today's guest, Lubiana. She is a Belgian Cameroonian singer-songwriter, kora player. We talked about a lot of things in this episode, from her discovery of the kora and her relationship to it, as well as her mixed identity, growing up in Belgium, also being Cameroonian, navigating two different cultures, and celebrating her Africanness. Her most recent project, Terre Rouge, meaning Red Earth, is an album that is dedicated to the African continent and kind of represents this rediscovery of her roots. She is just the most warm and gentle spirit and such a true artist, and I am just so in awe of her, and I'm really excited for you guys to just witness her greatness through this episode. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy.
Hello everyone, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. When I was first kind of dreaming up who I wanted to have, you were on the list, so I'm happy that this is happening.
Thank you.
I wanted to start off kind of how I start off most of these episodes, honestly, just asking people about their journey with music and how it all got started. So I just kind of want to hear about your musical upbringing. Like, what were you listening to in the house, and how did you start to find this love of music?
I feel like I always listened to music at home without really being aware of what I was listening to. Obviously, my mom is from Belgium. She listens to a lot of classical music, French music. And my dad is from Cameroon, so a lot of Manu Dibango. He's a big fan of MC Solar as well. But I guess it's when I discover randomly, I mean, if randomly exists, I found on YouTube a video of Nina Simone playing this song, Love Me or Leave Me, on the piano. And from that moment, something changed and I clicked. Also, the way she looked, and for the first time, because I'm mixed, I could see myself in another artist, in someone else, because I grew up being the only mixed race kid in around the school and everywhere.
Yeah.
So when I would see her embracing somehow, without naming it, her Africanity, and just having this unique sound and voice and being unapologetic, I could like dream of one day doing something kind of similar. And I discovered Nina Simone, then Sarah Vaughan, and I dived into the jazz spectrum and really fell in love with jazz music. My first dream was to be a jazz singer.
You ended up studying jazz too, right?
I did, yeah. I started to learn vocal jazz and
That's
piano.
so cool. So when did it turn into, from kind of first listening to music and seeing yourself in different musicians to then you being like, okay, this is what I would like to do?
I just kept doing things that I love. I never questioned myself, oh, is it a real job? I just love making music and creating and writing my own songs. I wrote my first song when I was like 13. It's turned out to be a song that Sting already wrote. So I guess, I mean, it
Stop.
wasn't the same lyrics, but it wasn't the same lyrics, but it was exactly the same melody. So I
Yeah.
guess I must have heard the song before and said
Yeah.
to my parents, look, this amazing song I created. And my dad was like, I think it already exists. But that's how it happened. And then I would start to do those little shows at school and having my own band with friends and starting to do little shows here and there. Without knowing that I could actually get money for it. At first, I
Yeah.
was just paying and just being so happy to play in front of 2 or 3 people. I love
Yeah.
being on stage, even though I was very scared at the beginning. I couldn't open my eyes. I was holding
Oh,
the
yeah.
microphone like this, um, and slowly I opened one eye and then the other, and then I started to
Yeah.
smile, and then, how it happened. And then, yeah, it was very clear for me that this was the only thing that really gave me this feeling of feeling 100% alive and being in the present moment. And yeah.
Wow. One thing that I really admire about you is that it's very much your goal not only to create music and say what's on your heart, but also kind of be a bridge between cultures. And I relate a little bit to your upbringing in that I grew up in the US, and my parents are from Uganda. And so I very much relate to this feeling of in some ways, having grown up feeling at home in one place and not the other, but in different ways, like, here very much being the African kid and there very much being the American kid, but in each place kind of feeling sentiments of both cultures like bleeding over and trying to figure out how to embody everything, I guess. So yeah, what was it like growing up for you, as kind of a child of two different cultures, and then on top of that as well being mixed?
Yeah, I believe that, from a very early on, my dad would bring me to Cameroon. My first
Mm-hmm.
trip there, I was 10 months old. So it has always been there. And I remember being called, and still is, I am still today called the white, La Blanche in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in Cameroon, it's like a cultural thing. Sometimes, depending where you go, it's Toubab, Toubabou, La White. But like in Cameroon, it's La Blanche. And because French is my first language, it's something that directly hit me. Maybe if they would have called me Toubab, I wouldn't really realize what it meant. But being called La Blanche and always refer to my skin color and feeling like I don't belong in Africa, really. But also when I was in Europe and in Belgium, I also felt different. My hair is different.
Yeah.
Also, just there is things that because my mom is white, she didn't really know how to take care of my hair. And
Mm-hmm.
it was always a struggle finding my identity and not having maybe an older sister to talk to or to refer to, and not really seeing on television people who look like me. It made me feel very insecure for a long period of time. And for that, at some point, I stopped going to Africa. It wasn't really conscious, but when I turned 17 or 16, I was more and more into music. And I usually go to Africa every summer. But when I turned 16, I said to my parents, I'm old enough now, I can stay home and be focused on
Mm-hmm.
music and doing some little festivals here and there. And 1 year turned out to be 10 years without going back. But as my grandfather always told me, to know where you're going, you need to know where you come from. I felt
Mm-hmm.
like after a while, I started to feel this call to go back to my roots, to my African roots.
From what I understand, a lot of that call too was your discovery of the kora instrument and that kind of
Yeah,
being almost like a musical soulmate for you.
exactly.
So I would love to hear about that whole just like discovery of the instrument.
I dreamt of the kora. So I was studying jazz music for like a year or two. It was difficult because I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I didn't have the knowledge yet as a jazz musician. I was trained as a classical, background, so I could read the notes and everything. But the ear
Mm-hmm.
training, the harmony, it was very difficult for me to understand, and I struggled a lot during my studies to the point where I got really anxious, where my teacher would tell me to stop, to quit music, to keep it as a hobby, where
Wow.
I would be booed by the other students because I couldn't answer quite, yeah, fast enough. So it was a very overwhelming period of time. And also, maybe also being one of the only women in a mainly masculine environment, feeling like I wasn't good enough. So I
Mm.
started to question myself and I was losing a bit my love for music. I was always anxious. I was always feeling like a failure. And, spirituality has always been a part of my life. I grew up in both culture in Africa. In my dad's side, we from a tribe called Bamileke, where the ancestors are like our spiritual guide from God to human. They are kind of creating this
Mm.
link. I believe in spirituality. I believe that I am not alone and that I am a vessel. And somehow I
Mm-hmm.
connect with some energy, and my mission is to be in service. So I prayed and I asked the universe, the source, God, to know if music was really part of my calling because, at the end, there's no need for me to struggle and to be anxious all the time
Yeah.
for something that might not be a part of my path. And I started having those dreams where I could see myself playing this little harp. I didn't know what it was. But it would happen every night for a month. And I started to ask my friends, my family, have you ever seen an instrument? It wasn't really clear, but it was like a small harp. Have you seen it somewhere? I
Mm-hmm.
asked around me and couldn't find it until one day I had this very intense discussion with my mom where I told her, Mom, I'm just exhausted with
Mm-hmm.
music. I feel like I'm never going to be able to make it. Maybe I don't belong there. And she told me, well, before you quit your studies, just take a break and go with me in Spain, in Mallorca, which is going to be near the sea and relax. And
Mm-hmm.
so we went there together. And the day before I discovered the kora, I cried. And I feel like at this moment, she understood that it was really getting too much for me.
Yeah.
And one last time, I look at the sea and I ask the universe, please give me a sign. And the next day, I was in the street in Mallorca and I heard the sound of the kora. And it felt like love at first sight. I didn't even know where the sound was coming from. I just felt it in my soul. And I said to my mom, where is it coming from? Where is this sound coming from? She showed me this guy playing this instrument. And she said, I think that's from this instrument. And from this moment, I knew.
That's so, how did you, well, one, all of that is so cool and powerful. And I love also hearing about like your connection with spirituality and, following your intuition and dreams and stuff. And like dreams are a massive part of my
Mm,
life as well.
mm,
So I love, love, love to hear like instances of that in other people's lives and them like
mm,
receiving information from dreams. So that's
mm.
really cool to hear. What kind of came after that? How did you then kind of track down like, okay, this is this instrument and this is how I'm going to play, especially given that, from what I've learned via like learning about you, the kora is very much an instrument that is kind of rare and it is also very like familial and passed down from father to son to father to son. And so even you entering that space as a woman is like a little rare. So anyway, I would love to hear about kind of all of that.
I feel like sometimes for love you can move mountains and it feels effortless. You know, when you
Mm-hmm.
love someone, when you love something, everything was so easy. Everything, I had this energy, I was completely, and I still am so in love with this instrument, with the sound of the kora. It speaks to my soul. So when I got home after discovering the kora in Mallorca, I received a message. I had sent this video to my manager,
Mm.
and the day after, he sent me a message saying, "Oh, I think it's called a kora." So then I discovered that it's a traditional instrument from West Africa that is passed on from father to son since the 13th centuries, and
Wow.
that is only played by men that are called the griot. They are the storytellers of West Africa. So when I heard about it, it was very important for me to be respectful because I know the importance of culture, especially from African culture, because I am myself from a tribe, so I know what it feels like to just wanted to respect the ancestors, basically.
Totally. Yeah.
And I got reached out by Tumani Diabate, who is known and was known as one of the king of the kora, the one of the big master of the kora, who's from Mali. And he was playing with his son, Sidiki Diabate, in Brussels. And he invited me to have dinner. We talked a lot. And he asked me, how did you came about playing the kora? And when I told him that I dreamt of this instrument, he told me that it means that the kora chose me because that's how she appears in dreams.
It's amazing.
So he gave me his blessings. And from that day on, I felt like it was so important for me to respect the tradition and also learn from the great masters. And that's actually the kora who called me back to Africa after 10 years. So to learn to play the instrument, I went to Senegal, to Mali, to Gambia, spending months with those masters and also having my own style of playing that is different from the tradition because I also have a jazz background and I love folk
Mm.
music and French music and new soul music and all those different type of music and that's how it happened but for me it has always been very important to be respectful and know what
Of
I'm
course,
talking
yeah.
about. And I did actually a whole thesis about the kora for my master in jazz music.
That's so cool. I mean, it seems like, just the nature of the instrument and like the backstory of the instrument and the tradition is just different than, a lot of more like well-known instruments. But also, I think a difference is that because it isn't, you know, doesn't follow the same like notation necessarily as like other
Mm.
music and stuff, that that experience is different. So, and I wonder too if when you're talking about your own individual style of music, if that of playing the kora, if that at all has to do with it, of just having to learn the instrument by ear, kind of. But
Mhm.
yeah, I'm curious about like the yeah, I guess like the process of starting to like actually feel into the instrument and learn from the greats while also creating your own lane.
I never actually thought about this process. It has always been very organic and very
Mm,
natural. Um, I feel like for me, actually, the kora being part of the oral tradition and not having notation freed me a lot because I was studying
mm-hmm.
jazz and reading the notes and trying to transcribe everything. It was getting very
Yeah.
overwhelming for me. So
Yeah.
with the kora, basically, I was just trusting my own ear. If it felt right, if it sounded right, then it was correct. And also, it's not like I had so many other kora players around me to compare myself with. I was just
Yeah.
creating my own world in a way and just trying to see what feels right and what felt right at the moment when I was writing those songs. So it was very organic, and I never actually thought about the fact that I would write songs and release them with the kora.
Mm-hmm.
At first, it was like a personal journey, a self-love journey in a way. So when I discovered the kora, I said to my team, "Oh my God, I found this amazing instrument. I'm just gonna play and sing." And I
Mm-hmm.
remember because back then I was mainly known as a jazz vocalist. And I remember my team saying, "Why?" They either they did another kora or they had this very old school vision of the instrument.
Mm.
And when I realized that people around me were not as enthusiastic as I was, I felt like I didn't want anyone to dim my light and dim my fire.
Yeah.
So I decided to go to London and play in open mics. And I did that for a few months. And the way this experience there was amazing. I was there with my dad, and I really felt like,
Wow.
okay, I had something very special with this instrument. I was on my right path. I was aligned. And then I traveled to Los Angeles for a year and again kept growing as an artist, even before going to Africa. So it was kind of
Yeah.
the self-love journey and discovering more of who I am.
I love that. I love that everything within your artistry and in your life just kind of comes about in an organic way, and following your calling and following like what you need to do to discover yourself. And then as a product, you end up finding this instrument and creating these songs, and that feeds into your artistry, which I think is really, really cool. Also, I wanted to ask about the, I guess, the perception of women kora players, since it has historically been more of like a male instrument.
Mm.
So is that something that is changing? Are you seeing more and more women who are playing the kora? And also, it seems also like you were very well accepted by the greats
Mhm.
of this instrument. So I just
Mhm.
kind of want to know what that feels like as a woman.
To this day, I haven't met a lot of women playing the kora. There is
Mm.
obviously Sonia Jobarte, who is
Mm.
actually, I think, the cousin of Toumani. So,
Oh, okay.
Jobarte and Diabate is actually the same name, but because it's the oral tradition, he's being changed
Oh,
depending on the country. In Gambia,
yeah.
because we speak mainly English, it's said Jobarte, but in Mali, where we speak French, it's Diabate. So it's the same family.
Oh, okay,
So
cool.
Sonia is a griot. So even though she's a woman, she's still part of the tradition. And
Mm,
actually, so that's the only professional woman that I know playing the kora. I'm sure there is other, I'm sure, but I'm not
mm,
aware of them. So
yeah,
I think that to this day, it's still pretty rare to see a woman playing the kora, but not only a woman, but also someone who is not from the griot tradition,
yeah,
from that is
yeah.
not from West Africa. A
Yeah.
few weeks ago, I played in Cameroon, and a lot of men ask me, "But why are you playing this instrument that is from West Africa?" You know,
Mm,
even because in Central Africa we don't really play the kora. In
yeah.
East Africa, neither. So it's not only men, but it's mainly men from West Africa that
True. Yeah.
still, symbolize the sound of the kora, which I think is beautiful. I love the beauty of the legacy. I think it's beautiful. And
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
those griot has been so welcoming towards me. So I only have gratitude towards them.
That's amazing. I'm happy that it's been such a positive experience and that it's changed your
Yeah,
life so much.
it has
Um,
been.
I would like to hear about the creation of your most recent album, Terre Rouge, kind of a like love letter to the African continent, which is so cool to see. And I don't know, I think also part of why I feel so connected to you and your music too is like hearing these sounds that remind me of the music that I listened to in childhood. And I just love I love seeing these like traditions and like this history passed on through different generations, especially within the diaspora, because it can be kind of difficult to maintain some of those things with seeing an artist that is, you know, very much putting at the forefront like the importance of keeping, your lineage strong and your culture strong is just, I just really love that. But yeah, I would love to hear about the creation of this album and also what kind of prompted you, whether it was a prompt or again, kind of something intuitive. But yeah, what prompted you to kind of have a project dedicated to Africa?
I never thought I would ever write an album um, that embraced my Africanity because for
Mm-hmm.
such a long period of time, I felt like I didn't belong in Africa.
Yeah.
So I felt like I actually couldn't write a song that is about Terre Rouge, about the color of the earth in Africa, the red earth. But then to create this album, I actually decided, okay, I'm just gonna write one song every day, not thinking about it. And I actually wrote 60 songs for this album.
Whoa.
Yeah, but for me, because I feel like creativity is also a muscle, it's not just
Yeah.
something that happens. So I didn't want to make it too official. So I thought, let's just write one song a day and see what happens.
Yeah.
And the first song I wrote was Ancestors. And I was like, interesting. Okay, I'm talking about the ancestors. And at that time, I wasn't that connected to the spirituality of, the Bamileke and the ancestors. But I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And then I sang Pembihi, which means ancestors in in my language, in Bangwa.
Mm.
And then the second song was called Terre Rouge. And suddenly it clicked. And the moment I wrote this song, I could see this old picture of me when I was like 2 or 3 years old in front of the cars where are, resting my ancestors. And somehow it kind of created this connection. And then the third song was La Blanche, and it almost surprised me because I was like,
Mm.
oh, I guess I was affected by that.
Totally. Yeah.
Because, I never talked about it to anyone. The fact that I'm being called La Blanche in Africa, I never mentioned that.
Yeah.
And suddenly I wrote a song about it. So I was like, I guess it it was affecting me.
Yeah.
And so that's how it actually happened. And then after the third or the fourth song, it became very obvious for me that there was a thematic there that I
Yeah.
wanted to dive in. And so that's how it started.
Wow, I love that. Again, something that's coming so naturally to you. I want to talk specifically about La Blanche and kind of what you wanted to capture within that song.
I guess a year prior to writing this song, I was in Cameroon with my dad, really annoyed by people yelling at me, La Blanche in the market. So I
Mm-hmm.
said, let me just record that because nobody's going to believe me. If I say that to someone in Belgium, they will say, no, if someone who
I
has never been
know.
to Africa, they would say,
Yeah,
there's no way someone will just call you by the color
totally.
of your skin. So I was like, let me just record that and just as a souvenir.
Yeah,
So I just recorded that, and for me, I was like, even though I was a bit pissed off by that, I was like, at least I, I'm just recording it. I didn't know what
yeah,
to do with it, but then
yeah.
I wrote this song La Blanche, and then I was like, I need to incorporate the sound of the market there.
Yeah.
And so I just mixed this ambience of the market, people in the street, and I started to have all the souvenir of just me being there in the market with my cousins and being very scared. You know, when I was
Yeah.
younger, I was so scared to go outside in the street because the moment I would go out, I felt like all the attention was on me.
Yeah.
Also in Cameroon, there's not a lot of light-skinned people, you know, barely none.
Yeah.
So I definitely stand out, you know, when I
Mm-hmm.
was there.
Yeah.
So I wrote that, but also for me, it's also the symbolic is also very positive because at the end of this song, I said that I will live without luggage to discover the world, to better understand the world, and that my roots are wide
Mm-hmm.
and big, and being mixed actually is a gift. And
Yeah.
I see it that way now, that actually it opened my mind to so many different culture, and always finding respect, you know, no matter where I go. And also, you know,
Totally.
to learn the kora, I spent a lot of time in West Africa where the main culture is Muslim. And it was very interesting for me to always show respect for every tradition, every culture, because I grew up in that diversity myself.
Mm-hmm.
So this song, La Blanche, is also an hymn to being mixed, but in a positive way. And
Yeah,
it's
totally.
nice because I've received a lot of message from people who are dark skin or 100% black, but who grew up in Europe or in the States, and who told me, well, actually, when I'm going back home in Congo, I'm being seen as European or I'm not being seen as African. So I do have the
Totally.
same feeling. So it's not only referring to the color of my skin, but I think that's a feeling that there's a lot of people from the diaspora who can relate to.
Totally. I relate to it a lot as well.
Mm.
In Uganda and like East Africa in general, the word is muzungu for like white
Mm.
person or Westerner. And so yeah, it's very common that we'll be called that whenever we're in Uganda. And it's funny too, because even though I'm not mixed, I even just going there, I think especially like when you're in the village and stuff, like not only is it that like you might I like, although like phenotypically I look Ugandan, but like with the way that I dress or even the way that I walk, sometimes even in the States, I'll see
Mhm.
people and the way they walk and I'm like, that person is an African. Like there are so many different indicators. And then of course, obviously when I speak and I have an American accent, then it's like, oh, this person is not from here. But yeah, I think especially when you're like in the village and everybody knows everybody too. So even if,
Yes.
you know, they might know my family that's there and they might know my parents and my aunties and my uncles and whatever. But when a new face comes in too, like that in itself is something that's different. And I think that's something, like you said, that's kind of hard to explain to other people where it's like, no, trust me, like I really, really stand out in this place. But I
Hmm.
think it's a really beautiful thing to articulate. And like you were saying too, I agreed with everything you said in terms of like the blessing that it is to
Yes.
be of multiple cultures and like, you know,
Mm.
there are so many things that I appreciate about having grown up where I did, and so many things that I appreciate about Uganda. And I don't know who I would be if I didn't have these two different cultures like
Mm.
so ingrained in me, you know?
Yeah, and also it's saying to every people from the diaspora that you belong in Africa. You know
Mm-hmm.
your roots, you know that you're from Uganda, but there's a lot of people, especially in the States, who actually don't really know their roots. And
Totally,
but
totally.
still they really identify as black people, which is beautiful and which they are. But still when they go to Africa, they might not feel black enough in a way for the continent. You see, sometimes it's the
Exactly.
way
Yeah.
you cook, the way you eat. Sometimes you don't speak the local language. Sometimes it's just an expression, the way you dress, little details that make you feel like, oh, I'm different. And it might be
Yeah.
very subtle. And from someone who, you know, like for my mom, like for her, it's completely odd that I'm telling her my dad grew up in Cameroon, but now because he has dreadlocks, when he goes back to Africa, they're like, oh, they know,
Totally.
you know. And she's like, yeah, but he's from Cameroon. He grew up there. I'm like, Yeah, but still,
Yeah.
people can tell that now you live in Europe. So it's very subtle,
Totally.
very interesting to notice.
That's funny that you bring up the dreadlocks thing because that's my brother as well. He grew up in Uganda and then moved to the States and now he has dreadlocks. So I'm sure when he goes back, people are like looking at him a little
Yeah,
sideways.
because nobody has them over there. When you have dreadlock, it's like in French we say that tu es un bandit. Like
Mm.
you're doing weird stuff, which is
Yeah,
not
yeah,
the
yeah.
case. But like nobody
Exactly.
has that hairstyle.
Exactly. That's the perception. I also remember I watched a video that you'd posted where I think you were like getting your makeup done or something in Cameroon and you were trying to tell people like, no, I'm from here. And the woman was like, I'm not sure about that. And you're like, well, here's my dad. Like, don't we look alike? And she's like, I'm not sure about that either.
This moment, amazing, yeah. And it was
It
only a
was,
few weeks ago. And we
I
actually,
know.
and when I told her that I come from Bangwa, and she was like, me too. We literally come from the same
Yeah.
village, which is a very small village with only 6,000 people. And she was like,
Yeah.
no
And she's
way.
like, no, you don't.
No, no, exactly. No, you don't. And I've had that so many times where I'm with my dad and my dad say, oh, that's my daughter. And people say, no. And I'm like, yeah, he's my dad. No, it's not.
It's like,
And you're
I
like,
don't know why.
well, there's nothing else I can say. They're just like, no. And I'm
I
like, well,
know. It was interesting reading the comments under that video too, because I think it reminded me of what you were saying of like trying to explain to people in Europe that like, yeah, people yell la blanche at me, people yell this, people yell that, and they're like, no. And reading the comments, I think there were a bunch of people where I'm like, yeah, you've definitely never been to Africa and like been told all of these things about yourself from other people.
yes, exactly. No, it's crazy. But also, this woman was very nice. And,
Yeah.
I asked her if I could post a video.
Yeah.
And because I know that it was very genuine, it was very
Yeah,
authentic.
of
She was like,
course.
no, like, your skin is light, so you're white, basically. She said, no, like, you don't even look mixed. And we did another video that hasn't been released yet with my friend who has albinism. I don't know if you say that in English. It's the
Oh, yeah,
same
yeah,
name.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
we were in the street in Yaoundé and we were asking to people who is white, the most white between him and me. And people were like, well, they were confused. They said,
Wow.
he's white, but inside he's black. And you're white, but inside you're white.
Stop. Oh my
Yeah, it was very
God.
interesting. And we're like, okay,
Oh my
interesting.
God. Wow. Okay, well, I'm eager to see that video.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Another song that I want to ask you about is Farafina Muso, and
Mm.
also both like the different versions of it too, the one with Gael Faye, and then also the most recent version that you did, and kind of how both of those came about and gave life to the song in different ways.
Mm. So, Farafina Muso means African woman in Bambara. When I wrote this song, I immediately thought about Gael Faye. I don't know why. I think that I saw some of his interview where he was talking about, the fact that he grew up with amazing women surrounding him, the love he has for his wife and his two daughters. And then I saw a documentary that he did about women from Rwanda who, during the genocide, got, endured a lot of violence. And I saw this documentary, teared up, and really felt this pain deep in my soul. And it was a few months before writing this song. But when I wrote this song, I felt like I heard his name. I don't know how to explain it, but it just felt like it was supposed to be him on the song with me. So I messaged him on Instagram. We were following each other, but never met. And the beauty of it is that he was writing his new book, who is called Jacaranda, who is talking about the generation from woman to, from mother to daughter, and how, keeping things silent in your lineage, has an impact on everyone. And
Mm.
so he told me, I'm writing this book, and usually I never accept, collaboration because I just want to be focused on my book. But he said, I pressed play, I heard your song, and the view was even more beautiful from my window in Kigali because he's based in Rwanda. So he invited me in Rwanda, in Kigali. We shooted this beautiful video showcasing the beauty of African women. This was amazing. Actually, this whole experience was amazing. And then when I was in Gorée a few months later, I was there and I started to play in front of a house. And without noticing it, two little girls came out and started to listen to me. And when I saw that, I was so moved and I posted this video online a few weeks after releasing the original version with Gaël Faye, and it got viral. I
Mm.
think maybe it was just the beauty of the moment, the fact that those two little girls listened to the lyrics, and I'm saying that if the earth is a woman, if the sea is a woman, if the moon is a woman, I know God is a woman. And the fact that they were there this moment, I don't know, something happened. It was magical. And then a lot of women started to resonate with this message from all around the world.
Mm.
Um, a lot of men also calling the divine feminine, you know? And I felt like I needed to release a new version, uh,
Mm.
an acoustic, a stripped down version of this song. And again, it resonated with a lot of people, and it's beautiful to see so many women vibrating through this song and meditating. Women cycle, women gathering together, embracing their divine feminine. It's a positive message that basically says that we need to respect our women.
I love that. I love the message of the song, and it's been really cool to see what it is doing online. I think there are a lot of people who are seeing themselves in it and resonating with it, which is really cool.
It's beautiful, but again, I truly believe that I'm not doing this, this I'm just a vessel, and I'm just grateful that I happened to connect through this energy. But
Mm-hmm.
as long as I'm in service to this world and spreading love and light, I'm grateful and happy, and seeing this song, spreading and being viral, it's a blessing. For me, it's just a beautiful message, and I'm so happy to know that this song is not mine, it doesn't belong to
Yeah.
me anymore.
It's interesting what you're saying about like being a vessel, and I think a lot of artists feel that way about
Yeah.
being an art of thinking like or an artist, like maybe it doesn't necessarily come from me. I'm just a conduit for something or a conduit for a certain message. And it reminds me of what like some songwriters often say of like there are all of these ideas and songs and things that already
Mm.
exist, and they're just these ideas are kind of floating around us all the time, and then when like
Yeah.
inspiration strikes, it's kind of a certain artist at a certain time who happens to grab that idea, and they're the ones to
Mm.
bring that message to life.
Exactly. But we all are,
Yeah,
no matter
that's
what we
true.
do. I believe
Yeah.
that everyone is unique, everyone is important, and also we are all connected. So for me, I'm doing that through music, but you're doing that through your podcast.
Thank
Some
you.
people is by raising children,
Mm-hmm.
amazing young boys, amazing young women, by being a sport teacher, working at a bakery. No matter what you do, it's about the intention that you put in. So
Totally.
it's just about that. And the Kora really helped me to know that I'm on my way, on my path, and there is room for everyone. That's definitely something I truly believe in.
Totally. I have a few more questions for you. One, switching gears a little bit. A few months ago, you performed for Alicia Keys for her birthday. So I'm very curious
Yeah.
about that. That must have been a really cool experience. How did that come together?
Yeah, he was beautiful. So her husband, Swiss Beats, reached out to me. He told me that, she's been listening to my music on repeat during her meditation every
Oh,
day.
wow.
Um, just, yeah, that, he's been hearing my music all over the house. And for her birthday, he wanted to do something very special and show her that he pays attention to all the little details that bring her joy.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And so he said, I want you to be there because there's no way she will expect you to be there. And that's gonna, like, yeah, show her how much I love her and how much,
Oh.
I'm always listening and always trying to, do things that bring her joy and happiness. So I basically was a surprise. They flew me to Jamaica and I had to hide. And she was there with all her friends and she sat down and then, I just came and sang, and she was so beautiful and inspiring and welcoming. And we spent the whole weekend there. It was beautiful, lovely. We had the most beautiful food, vegan food, and meditation and yoga. And our friends are amazing as well, very
Wow.
welcoming. Swiss Beats is amazing. They made me feel like family, really.
That's so
It's
nice.
strange because, we never met before, but during this weekend, I really felt like a part of the family, and they treated me as such. So I'm so grateful that we keep in touch, stay in contact, and I will forever keep those memories.
That's amazing. Oh my God. That was really cool to see. And I'm glad that you had such a good experience. And I feel like you guys have
Yeah.
a very similar energy. So I love that you guys
Mm.
have been able to get together and that you were able to do that for her.
Yeah, she's very inspiring, and also the love that connect them together. Alicia and her husband is so beautiful to see. It's very a healthy relationship, uplifting each other. It's beautiful. Yeah, just the energy is there, definitely.
I love that. We've spent a lot of time in this interview talking about your African roots, but obviously, you are Belgian as well. And I think
Yes.
what is so cool about, um, I don't know, I feel like the Belgian music industry is like really booming, and there are just so many cool Belgian artists from like, of course, you and
Yeah.
Angèle, Stromae, like
Oh.
Shy, Leona, like, I don't know. What do you think maybe contributes to all the creativity and stuff that's coming out of Belgium, and or like what's the kind of music community like in Belgium?
Yeah, it's so beautiful to see. When I was younger, before Stromae, there was not a lot of very like big and famous Belgian artists apart from Jacques Brel.
Hmm.
But since Stromae came, there is Damso and there is
Yeah,
Tamino and so many amazing
he's so good.
artists.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's so nice. I don't know why. I
yeah,
guess maybe because we grow up with a lot of diversity, different languages. There is
yeah.
like
That's
three
very true.
languages part of Belgium, a mix of culture, um, but also the music that I'm doing versus the music of Angèle is very different. So it's not like there is a common root or anything. I guess I don't know, maybe it's the curiosity to listen to a lot of music, genres, and culture is very important in Belgium as well. You know, there's a lot of different styles of music, and the scene is very interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm so happy to be Belgian.
I love that. I love the Belgian pride. I went to Belgium last year actually for the
Really?
first
Where?
time.
In Brussels?
Yes. Okay, yeah, I was there and I was in Brussels and then I went to Bruges as well. And it was so beautiful.
I was in Bruges 2 days ago. I
Really.
love it. Did you enjoy
It's
it?
so pretty. It is so pretty. I mainly like, yeah, I had heard of Bruges from an interview of Stromae and I looked it up and I was
Mm.
like, oh my gosh, this place looks gorgeous. And so I went on a solo trip. It was my first solo trip and
Oh,
I was gone for a week and I did like Paris and then Brussels and Bruges and I had
so
the best time.
nice.
Yeah.
I'm happy that you came in Belgium because
I
most people they just
know.
stay in Paris, but you came here, so
Well,
it's
yeah,
nice.
that's also the thing is I think I don't know, I just wanted to see it and I think it it almost reminds me of like I don't know. For example, in like New York, everyone thinks of well, when they think of the U.S., they think of New York or like whatever, and
Los
there are
Angeles, yeah.
yeah these like certain, but there's always other places around that
Mm,
are always like
yeah.
really cool, and so like I wanted to also just visit Belgium and like I was like okay,
So
so
nice
many
you
of my
did
favorite
that.
artists come from this place, and also like there's more to I don't know. I love France, I really do, but there's also more to
Mm,
life than just France. And so I don't know. My point is just that I think it's nice to of course
yes.
visit these big cities or countries or whatever,
Mm.
but there are often smaller places around them that are like just as rich in culture.
Definitely. And a little anecdote, because I was mentioning earlier that when I discovered the kora, most people around me were like, why I don't get it. But actually, Stromae was actually the first artist to really see my
Of
vision. He
course.
told me, like, there's really something with this instrument in you, like, just keep it up. So I remember
Oh,
playing for him
my
many years
king.
ago. So yeah, it's amazing, and I'm so happy you went to Bruges and Brussels. I'm sure you enjoy your time there.
I did. I want to go back and visit some other cities.
Yeah, you will hit me up. I will let you. I
Yeah. I
will.
was gonna say you've got to tell
Yeah,
me some
I will.
recommendations. I
I
didn't have
will.
that much time,
Yeah,
um, but yeah, um,
nice.
but yeah. Shout out to Belgium. I just feel like Belgian people have my heart because all my favorite music comes out of Belgium. My final question is, this podcast is all about women in music all around the world and uplifting them. And so I just wanted to know who are some of the women that you're listening to right now and that you're inspired by, whether in Belgium or elsewhere around the world.
Okay, so I'm currently touring with Fatoumata Diawara, who is amazing.
Oh my God, she's incredible.
Yes, she's amazing. So shout out to her. If you don't know her music, I mean you do, but for the listeners, um, I'm also like really into November Ultra. She's from France.
Okay.
She's amazing. She's doing a lot of lullabies and bedtime stories, and her voice is so warm. There is my amazing friend Daphne Kritaras, who is from Greece, based in France, but she sings like traditional influence of Greek sounds. It's beautiful. Yeah, she's amazing. I'm also a big fan of Maro. I
She's
think, yeah,
so good. I
she's
want her on the
amazing.
podcast. She's very good.
Yes. And also Iseult. I really,
Incredible.
yes. Yeah, she is incredible. She
Yeah,
is. So yes, and there's so many more that I can think of. Um,
totally.
and for the more traditional, there is Umu Sangare that I really love. She has this song called Mogoya, which
Okay.
means humanity in Bambara. That is such a beautiful song. Sonia Jobarte, that we mentioned earlier, who is an amazing singer and kora player from Gambia. Yes.
Amazing. Okay, cool. I knew some of those, but there are definitely some in there that I need to look up.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for doing this with me. It was such a lovely conversation. Where can people find you online?
Well, I think everywhere, right? I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube. Of course, my music is available everywhere, every platform, Spotify, of course. So yes, I'm there. I'm online. And also I'm touring. So yes.
Amazing. So exciting.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for doing this. This was so fun.
Your questions are very, very interesting. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
good.
Thank you for
Okay, that
doing
makes me
that.
very glad. Yay, thank you
Yes,
so
you're very
much.
talented.
Oh my gosh, don't make me blush. Yeah, you can find me also on Instagram at Now You Hear Me Pod. And that's all for this episode. Thank you very much.